And we're like,
So if I recall, David, where we were, we had sent you out probably with not clear instructions on trying to do a report back on innovator section.
The Office of Workforce Innovation.
Where we had all the findings and people pointed out, well, we should essentially reference those findings and show how over the next couple of years this has improved on those numbers.
Right.
Or if it has 50%. So if we can pick up with that section, see if you have any language for us. Sarah Clarkson and I want to throw out the decision. I find this section to be probably the most important section of the bill. I think 1 year is insufficient to do it, so we're suggesting 2 years at twice the money, and we found sources for that money later on in the bill. So we'll go from 500,000 to $1 million. It'll go from 1 year to 2 years, and we would have the reporting requirement that folks have been asking for. This is in section 3.
Okay, we're on page 14 of David's draft, and I think we'd ask for July for a full year for the interim report, which David has it B, which is great, which is we may want something in January also that is identifying what they're going to be measuring, proposing what their goals are, and action steps to accomplish that. If we might call that an initial report, or an initial report, because they'll only have been organized for like 4 months, or depending on how it's organized, because the governor got back to me yesterday.
So,
and I just wanted to say in this that their suggestions are enough different than this that I think we need to continue that conversation in conference, but that this is going to hopefully get this at least onto the floor and into conference. But this is, I think.
Let me interrupt for a second because we have only a half hour. Okay?
Yeah.
So I'm going to ask the committee's indulgence, unless there are, very blatant problems people have, that we try and be accepting as we can, knowing that this may not be a perfect document and that we are going to go on conference. So I don't want to spend a lot of time tweaking a word here or tweaking a word there. There's conceptual problems. Let's deal with them and try and let David walk through as much as possible. I don't want to curtail conversation and debate, but if we're going to try and get this bill out, we can move. So.
Okay, may I just say that the dates that are here just are not the dates that we had talked about.
Okay.
And I think actually, if we're going to ask for some of these initial, sort of a feedback initially on their work, that we do that March or February, February and March of next year, and the CB January or I had originally said July of 24. But we could make it March of 24 and curtail it a bit. But help me on this. Those are the two things I think we need to work on. Just
tell David the truth.
Sounds like B should be March 15th of 23, and
Yeah.
C should be March 15th of 24.
Great, let's do that. Thank you.
Gotcha. All right.
The amount has changed. If we're going to do more and ask for more, we've doubled the money for 2 years. Okay, David, it's yours.
let me just throw back why I think January is a better date. Is because when you get something, a proposal for actions to take legislatively in March, it's too late.
Yeah.
It's too late.
Fine. Why don't we keep the initial one January? That puts a lot of pressure on them to come back, but that's what we want. We want a plan, a strategy, and we want to be able to act on it.
Next.
Okay, so January of 23 and then January of 24?
I would do, yeah, anyway. Oh, yes, fine.
All right, and then you'll see in line, David Hall, Legislative Council, by the way, looking at draft 6.1 of page 703, you'll see in line 19, the appropriation is increased to $1 million.
I'm gonna back up and say January 15, 24. I'm inclined to say December 5th, December 10, 23. Reason for that is to get time to get legislation prepared before we start a session, so we hit the ground running.
I'm agnostic. Like I said, these kinds of things could be further refined.
I know, once you get going, trying to get legislation drafted after digesting a report is time. Time is the essence of getting things that are complex like this done.
Okay,
I don't disagree, and our Senate deadline is earlier the second.
so let's do December
Just,
15th or 10th, whatever.
it has to be earlier than that, it has to be December first. But we're,
By December 1, 2023.
Let's go. Come on.
All right.
What page you on now, David?
Well, that was 14, and if we're if we're all set there, then I'm moving to the next that bit of blue, which is on page 16. So regional workforce expansion system. Again, the blue changes are relative to yesterday. So the amount is now 500,000. It's a 1-year pilot, 2 regions of the state. On page 17, though, I had flagged these and I briefly had a chance to discuss with Senator Clarkson this morning, but if you reduce the funding to 500,000 into 2 regions, then you have to make, I think you need to make sure that the positions line up with that. So right now, at least in this draft, it's 3 classified 1-year positions. So 2 in the field, 1 in each region, and then 1 at the state level.
So you just have to align those, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if those numbers work for you, then
Close enough.
what did you say, Randy?
Close enough for government work.
Yeah.
No, that's not.
Let's move on.
and
This time of year.
the next piece of, wow, this scrolls very slowly, I'm sorry. I'm crawling through my draft trying to find the next bit of blue,
I'm going quickly, so
which is,
Keisha has, we have,
here we go,
okay,
page
it's on
28.
page 28.
So this is the work-based learning and training program. This just specifies that there's a maximum of $100,000 for the cost of administration.
Well, we want the rest of the money going into Vermonters.
We want to go to the businesses or to the employees. You don't want it for coordinators or management of the program. This is an internship program. There's no reference of that.
Apprenticeship, intern, returnship, the whole schmagegi.
So that takes us to page 33. Just making sure we include paramedics.
That was the point that I made, that I wondered if in some way we could have either a broadening or some sort of language that would allow things that we forgot to be included.
Sure. So the way to do that, I think, would be to say B1 leads to initial employment or career advancement in a high demand trade or sector, including.
Yeah, that's
Could
something
we
like that.
say, or other comparable.
Credential or other comparable credential program. Maybe.
Yeah, I think we want to talk about ones that are a high demand.
They're high demand and they have to have a certificate of accomplishment, right, Amanda? That they have to have a,
Well, it says that. in the
Yeah.
first text.
So-
Training and certification program.
So if you could come up with some language just to do a catch-all of comparability.
Yeah.
Sure. So at the end, I'll say, or other high demand
it's
sector.
just
Okay.
the way it is.
Sweet. All right.
And then the next change is the money.
So on page 34, that increases from 3 million to 3.5 million.
So what we did here is we took out the EMS stuff, the almost $1 million that Senator White wanted, but we specifically mentioned them as being grantees in all these other programs. So they join the crowd and they compete for those dollars as opposed to isolate them out. But we added some more money to that pot too.
Got it.
So the money before was through Department of Health, and now it's through DSAC. I think that what matters is the granting entity.
I think what matters is they get the money.
Well, it does matter, but I don't know, I don't see how they are kind of assured.
Well, a lot of these trades are not necessarily health trades. That's one thing. We could say consultation with the Department of Labor and the Department of Health.
Well, this is where you need a coordinator.
This is the Vermont Trade Scholarship Program. Even though it does include medical trades, I think there's transportation, energy, broadband. I don't know that
Yeah.
the Department of Health should be. So maybe if we said, if you want, we could just simply say in consultation with an appropriate place, the Department of Health. And the Department of It's appropriate.
I guess we called out nursing as having a critical need, and emergency services was getting called out as a critical need. I'm hearing that the same thing. I don't really understand the value of this change.
The value of this change is that we were calling out very small numbers and very specific. Nowhere else in the bill is it that small and quite that specific. And so what we tried to do was incorporate, they fit into other places pretty well. This fits into the tuition and it's a trade with certificates. So it struck us that this was relatively easy to incorporate here if we want to make sure we have additional eyes for the healthcare related sector trades here. We can call that out and ask for the Department of Health to, in conjunction with the Department of Labor, oversee those pieces. But I think this fits in very nicely with what the objective is of the other, of what we had originally pulled out here. I mean, this is all for tuition,
Well,
and that's what this is.
Okay, so the dollars below were in kind of a block to have Department of Health support EMS.
That's right.
This looks like it's individuals have to figure out how to get access to this resource, unless I'm.
You're right. That's
So
correct.
I
Yeah, the
think that
individual
is
has to
a
go
huge difference.
Department of Labor.
That's a huge difference in the intent of the section below, which was to say we are going to bulk train up between 200 and 400
400. Yeah.
EMS folks. And now they just are on their own to try and figure out what these
And
are.
the nurses are non-specific. Also, I mean, the nurses were in the medical profession.
Now,
They're in
nurses-
programs that already exist.
So,
Nurses have plenty of.
Well, that's what I'm saying. We put nurses in their own section and we heard the urgent need to get specific dollars to emergency services. And now it's completely lost in like an individualized program.
It's not, I wouldn't say it's lost. I would say it's been incorporated.
Look at section 1, 450,000 for a voucher program to support students pursuing upgrading educational credits. That's the same thing we're doing for all the trades. I think the EMS people are going to have to come in as a student and say, I want a voucher. And that's what we're doing. That's what we're giving extra money into the trade scholarship program, and we're listing EMS, specifically listing EMS as eligible for those monies. It's sort of not a carve out. We haven't done carve out for broadband. We haven't done carve out for energy services, for transportation services, and I just don't know that we should be making a decision that this group is more worthy than all the other groups. We're increasing the pot. I'm assuming they'll go in and they'll make their pitch for money here. And there's another place later in the bill where emergency workers are mentioned as well, where they can go into that pot as well.
I think it's the issue of like making their pitch when for a lot of folks, this is like halfway between a professional and volunteer role. That they're just being asked to advertise and help people figure out this pathway when there's no there. This is one like person volunteering their time to try and save EMS.
I think one solution here is that embedded in the Department of Health is the person who oversees the EMS program. We could charge that person with making sure every EMS agency or every EMS department is aware of where to go for which loan reimbursement or tuition opportunity. I don't think it's that difficult. I think it's a communication issue. We already have this person in the Department of Health working with the EMS community, and I think we could do that and charge them with being a bridge between the Department of Labor and all these other.
I would like to do something like that to address that concern that Senator Ron has. I just feel a little uncomfortable. This was brought to us by the EMS people. They put out a budget, and I don't think we've heard enough that the administration hasn't come forward with this as a priority. I don't think we've heard enough to say this is a higher priority than everything else. That we get down to the granular thing of giving them $32,000 for critical care paramedic education, $62,000 for continuing education. I'd rather sort of kick the can down the road, put more money into the pot, and let them make their case to the administrators as to whether they're, in competition with other people.
But
we want to. I felt the same way on the arts stuff in our piece. I wanted to put it all in one pot as opposed to saying this should. I know that's not the right example, but that's what I'm trying to get at here.
I think what they've come forward and said is when we are in one pot, somehow we don't get the money, we're actually doing the work.
Let's take a vote on this. All in favor of keeping this separate, raise your hand.
Do we have a fifth person or?
Well, if there's three people that want to merge it, then we don't have to call it that.
I mean, this is a huge issue in
It's also going to conference, and it's also, we're facing a deadline.
I would say it's a huge issue, and we heard, Keisha and I in GovOps have heard the desperate need of EMS. I think we can solve this by simply adding a section directing the Department of Health and the Director of EMS to work with the EMS community and the Department of Labor to ensure that there is broad understanding of the opportunities available in this bill. Something like that.
Where you could, because again, labor's got to liaise with everybody from transportation to broadband.
Right.
Has charged the Department of Labor with an outreach program to all agencies of government that, in effect, have their hands on any of the professions that we target as high risk, to ensure that people are aware of the program, how to apply for it, and so on.
That's one of the things that they've taken on, I believe, in the language earlier, is marketing all these opportunities. But I do think with
certainly
the EMS,
the pilot program, that's an integral part.
right? But I think with this, as Keisha has pointed out, with this particular program, this is so heavily dependent on volunteers. There are a lot of them that aren't necessarily connected into all that other stuff, but
There's no bulletin board that they have for this,
But they do have the one person who is their liaison to all the EMS community is I can't remember what his
Well,
title is.
Drew? I mean, Drew Casey.
No, not Drew.
Oh, you
The
mean
person
in the
at Department of Health.
I don't know what he's doing.
He's got it's a new chap, but we can get his title. But if we do that, I think that might solve our issue, because we have a lot of money elsewhere that we've added, that the healthcare community added for healthcare professionals, and we incorporated the rest as opportunities for healthcare professionals, and there's a lot more money there.
I personally don't find that compelling, because I feel like what they came to us and said is they are always last in line. And when money goes out for professionals in general, healthcare professionals, they are often marginalized. So we can take a vote, but I have not found this compelling, frankly, to take this out. I think they came to us with a desperate emergency need. And if you leave this building and go to any town in the state, this is coming up for every town government. And this is the crux of how people get from, their home to access to healthcare, and they are in crisis. So I personally am very uncomfortable with just putting them back in.
Incorporating, you're uncomfortable with our
Yeah, and I
incorporating
have
them
found
into
this
other.
uncompelling, so let's like take a vote, if that's what you wanna do.
We need to move on. So we have a decision point here. All is in favor of combining it in this place and another place where EMS is specifically cited, and also adding language to the Department of Health saying, and the Department of Labor, that they should do outreach to make sure people are beneficiaries of these programs are fully made as fully aware as possible of their availability. All in favor of doing that, raise your hand.
And I'm happy to be in touch with Drew and see
And
if that's.
again, this is not, we are feeling a lot of time pressure, so this could surface again in the conference. I don't even know how the House feels about this. They never talked about this in their at all. So, okay,
David, do you have that language about the charging the Department of Health and the director of whoever, I think it's the title is Director of EMS. I can't remember what their exact title is, with coordinating with the EMS community to ensure that all the opportunities in this bill are made available, because there's
So
actually.
you're not just talking about this section, but the entire bill?
Yeah, I think so, because there are lots of opportunities
I think
in,
it's in the first section of the bill.
Well,
But
that's,
I think we want something specific, just a sentence in this section as well, the trade section, and then there's another section where EMS is included.
well, they're a bunch, because
So why don't we let David
Okay.
do his magic, and let's keep moving on.
we've included them in healthcare all the way through in the healthcare section, which opens them up to an even larger pot than we were talking about. And you're right, it's not a specific format, and so we may revisit this. So we have cut the, sorry.
David, are we ready to move on?
Can you just help me understand too, it is now $500,000. So $500,000 disappeared from that section.
Yes, but there is another section later on in terms of money for professionals that that were EMS and paramedics are specifically included where they hadn't been included, so they can have access to that money as well.
And then another $500,000 went there.
I don't think we changed the number on that.
So the
We'll
$500,000
get-
went to the workforce innovation position.
No. It is, you'll see further on in the healthcare section.
So where'd the other $500,000?
We're, I think, we're basically even from where the House was. We put more money into workforce innovation and we took money out of the direct service pilot delivery program. So that was a balance of that. We'll get all the numbers, but my eyeball of it is just about in the second place. We took some money out and we put some more money. This is one place where we put more money in, and the workforce innovation, we put more money out.
For next item, I think on page 41.
I don't know.
Well, page 35, you are striking out section 15 in its entirety.
I think it's called the Vermont Office of Emergency Medical Services.
I know, David, we'll have that language pretty quickly. So we'll come back to it.
And actually, under this, they're pretty clear on all the opportunities that are available. But I believe it's called I'll get this, David, we need to get this to you, but I believe it's the Office of Vermont's Emergency Medical Services, the Vermont Office of Emergency Medical Services. And they have website of all the educational resources and opportunities, so they could easily include these opportunities that we've expanded to make them eligible.
Page 41, you are proposing to strike out.
I'm sorry, we didn't really talk, so am I to understand that we are not doing a loan reimbursement program at all
We've incorporated them in
the scholarship?
no, we've incorporated them in the loan reimbursement opportunities under healthcare professional labor.
I'm sorry, now I'm talking about section 15, which is also been struck.
Section 15 was, we decided to strike that because it could only, at a maximum, could only provide 100 people with loan repayment. And the way we understood it was working was that you are working in a trade and you want a $5,000 benefit. If you continue to work for 1 year in that trade, you get that $5,000 benefit. Okay? At the end of that year, there's no money left in this program because it's going to be spent. So what have we accomplished? Get someone to stay for another year in their job because they got $5,000. It just seemed like it was just too small and not enough reward. So that's where we went with it.
Okay.
People feel a bit differently. You know,
So I just wanted to.
no, it's fine.
I think that's what we felt, it's just not gonna help that many people, and I'd rather put more money into that, the thing with UVM and VSAC, in terms of keeping people here. There's just lots of other opportunities to do that are more sustained. This is not sustained in any ways, it's like a one-stop, this is one shot for very little money. Okay.
37,
So,
going to $10 million on the EHCB. I think we felt that, we heard from Gus and others, is that it's going to be a ramp up that's going to take many years, and we thought that this could, so it's ed fund money, so it helps yield bill, gives us more options for PCB and nutritional deals and stuff. But we felt that this was too much too soon, and they could accomplish their purpose with $10 million versus $15 million, and not even spend that $10 million over the next few years. We can review later.
So in this section, I did send a language that was approved by Gus from some of the other housing CTE partners to make sure that they could put in an eligible project as well.
Yeah, I don't remember seeing that. Did that came in?
no, that came just this morning, right? They said,
Yeah, I
what
had
you looked
walked,
at
I
was
had
correct.
walked, yes, yeah, and he workshopped it with Gus.
It's
It's
just
pretty
it's
simple.
broaden the
Let's read it.
types of pro building projects that could be included as
Mhm.
opposed to just residences or something.
I think it just,
Here, let's get the language so we know what you're talking about. It
says
says,
wording.
it's from you, so it is right here. It is at the bottom of his email, as I recall, right? And I thought it was just this, when I read your email, it was just a simple thing.
it is, I think this is existing language, but I don't know if we started the, I can't. Okay.
That's your email.
Is
And I thought it was very
David-
simple.
David, is this what we're talking about now? I don't know if you know what we're talking about.
It's
Looking
two,
at
these
page
two
39,
changes at the top.
lines 10 through 18. It looks like there's a lot of expansion to especially what can be built on, right? Not the language that you said.
It's two changes that after saying a regional CTE center, we would add or an existing agency of education approved alternative technical education entity. And then a line near the end that says, for the purposes of this section, or actually that might go at the beginning, but for the purposes of this section, CTE centers shall include existing alternative technical education providers who receive education fund. funding. So
So,
it's just allowing that groups that are not regional CTE centers, but are education approved to offer CTE to also participate.
I mean, it's the Senator Clarkson, I'm not sure if they understand.
yeah.
And Gus is fine with it.
Yeah. I think this is a modest shift. The only thing is it does, these are, they're CTE approved, right? They're people, they're organizations that have been, who've received
Senator,
it.
what in lay terms does it do?
It broadens me on the regional CTE centers who could have authority to partner with organizations to do this. So essentially that is some of the organizations that came in that have education fund support and can be credit bearing for people.
It can be. My only concern with this is broadening. I mean, I want this to be an opportunity for our CTE centers and our public education system centers. I mean, I don't mind, I don't want to dilute, the opportunity for our public schools.
I mean, I think in certain regions, the CTE center might not be the one who's doing housing projects. Whereas these are other statewide entities that are already doing specifically housing projects, and they don't have to spend 6 months getting up to speed on where are we gonna build a house and what are we gonna do? This is what
David,
they
have you
do.
seen this language at all?
I don't have it.
I accidentally, I think, sent it to a different email
Okay.
for you.
Can you write that up in a way that?
Yeah, Keisha's got it.
We allow for it in the event that CTEs aren't a viable alternative or something like that.
I think I'd be okay with
So
that.
I mean, CTEs could come in and say, you're taking money from us.
Exactly.
in our-
I don't want to dilute.
But if there's no other alternative, then they can go ahead and do that.
And
Okay,
I don't know.
can we move on? I think David's got
Yeah,
it. I trust David.
And
I just sent it to
David will ask questions if he doesn't.
Yeah, and my only concern with that is I think that's great, but I don't want to dilute the CTE opportunity.
Let's go to the next section, please.
Okay, we're looking at 10 million on page 37. Are we gonna,
Maybe you should let David
yeah,
tell us where he thinks.
David, where do you want to go next?
Well, you've covered the reduction in this program from 15 to 10, so the next piece is to strike out the findings and intent language that began with section 17 on page 41. So section 17, early childhood education findings, and then that takes you down through to 18 into page 43. So those are just.
What- We basically just struck things that did nothing, just intent section. So anything that didn't do something, we basically struck.
So in the healthcare pieces that come next, starting on
18A
page
we kept.
43,
Yeah.
my understanding is that you are accepting of the health and welfare recommendations
Yeah.
as modified by VSAC and Green, with a couple of exceptions which do appear in blue. And those are reflective of the debate on whether it's maintain good standing or, have a particular GPA. And my understanding is you're going with the maintain good standing
Yes.
construct.
Yep, we're supporting the healthcare committee on this.
So for instance, on page 51,
Right.
is where that manifests. And
Yeah, VSAC had wanted to keep a grade point average, and our healthcare committee wanted to more broadly engage and maintain good standing instead.
so on page 56, line 8, you've added emergency medical service professional, and paramedic to the list of healthcare professionals that could qualify
Yeah.
under the
This
program. Same.
is the loan repayment program.
Same on page 57.
So
What is,
to go to Keisha's concern and EMS is concerned, this is a section with, I can't remember how much is in this section. The loan repayment program, 26. I think it's,
can you remind me, was that like section 2
This
of
goes
loan
from-
repayment?
This goes from 2 million to 3 million.
this is $3 million at the moment.
Okay,
And so that increases that and
I thought a big chunk of what they were seeking was the cost covered of the initial training.
That's the first
that's
section.
in the trades,
That's the trade.
tuition.
So that's-
Tuition,
that's the
fees,
trades tuition.
licensing.
Is it forgiveness or is it
It's scholarship.
Oh, it's a scholarship. So
Okay.
it's straight,
It's forgiven, yeah,
Okay.
or it's granted. Whatever it is, it's ultimately a grant.
Okay.
and then this is what they also asked for, which was loan repayment, and we have included,
Okay, so
Yeah.
I think we can move along very quickly here, because if you recall, health and welfare made a good case, change this, they have more information. DSAC came in, cleaned it up for administrative purposes. We
Mhm.
accepted everything except this narrow issue, which totally agnostic about, go with our committee and just do good standing. We can really move forward
Yeah.
on this bill.
Let me just try to understand something though. First, in terms of the markup on this, who's yellow and who's green?
yellow,
Any highlight,
Let David answer, please.
any highlight is a change relative to the House version of 703. Yellow is the initial proposal of changes from any Senate committee. Green is VSAC's work proposed to the health and welfare language. And blue are the changes that you all have requested since yesterday on your pieces or other pieces.
Okay. And in terms of the sequence, is blue the latest? Or
Well,
the changes that have been
yeah,
made
I'd say-
since we've done our markup?
that's correct. Blue is reflective of the very most recent changes.
Third question I've got is regarding the priority of forgivable loans being granted. And the loans are being granted on a rolling basis. So if you have, I'm not sure what a rolling basis means, but it's like once a month we decide what we're going to give away. Does it mean that people who are in category 4 during that particular period of evaluation are fourth in line? And then when you get to the next period, say the following month, what happens to those that you haven't granted? Do they go back and pile, or how does that work?
All good questions. I have no idea. I've not worked on it language at all. Sorry, health and welfare and Jen have been the ones.
I'm just trying to understand. Does this
Yeah.
make sense? Yeah. This may be something we just deal with in conference, but I don't understand.
We can flesh it out. I put my faith in VSAC in terms of them having programs similar to this.
where do you see
throughout
the
their
rolling
history.
language?
Up in, fine.
Is it in section 26, 27, 28?
I just don't think we could get into the details of this right now. But they're good questions and they could get fleshed out in conference. I think there's faith in the
Yeah,
administrators. to do
it's
this.
somewhere in terms of the forgivable loan program as to how you decide who to give it to. In-state students who are studying in state, then second are Vermont residents who are studying elsewhere, then the third are, and so on, and the fourth are non-residents who don't go to school in Vermont. And you put them in a priority in terms of the awards, and that's in there somewhere, just read it.
Oh, the prioritizing.
Yeah.
So the green on page 68. Where is that language from?
All the green is proposal by VSAC.
VSAC, right. So where does VSAC and the health committee?
I think this takes us up to,
As far as I know, they're in sync except for the,
No, I'm saying, where does it end up? Paying that?
I think
We can jump ahead.
that's,
36.
takes us to page 74.
Okay.
Striking out section 33, which I understand is in another bill.
It's already gone, yeah, page 661.
So that's it for the healthcare changes, I think.
Are preceptors still in the bill?
Preceptors, I think, how did we miss preceptors? Well, that's.
Preceptors are, the healthcare committee felt strongly, they reduced their money, as you'll remember, they took it down to 1.4. And it is, section 21, I think. And, I think that is, we want-
Change we made was to say that money could go through the nursing program.
So
I don't, David.
I have not
David
made
came
that
back to us.
change, and I don't know if you saw the emails from Damien, but there's, it looks like pretty significant issues with that
So
relating to the employer-employee relationship, minimum wage issues.
Yeah.
Coordination with the program versus the hospital being the primary employer. It's a lot of stuff. I didn't change it.
Yeah, I saw that email, and the challenge is we want it to go to the people who are paying the nursing degree to do the additional teaching. We want to make sure it goes to them. And the question is, should it have gone to the educational institution that runs the program, or should it go to the hospitals who actually pay the nurses? And to maybe further clarify, because at the moment it's going to the hospitals. And that's okay if we're very clear that that's not just going to the hospital's bottom line, it's going specifically to these teachers. So if we can put more, our chair's favorite line, if we can put more guardrails around that money going specifically to these, I'm trying to find section 21.
If that's the concern of the committee, I'm not sure we have to change this at this point. It would be audacious for them to read this to say, this just goes to the hospitals without any connection to raising the
Right.
rates of them. So we could clean it up potentially in conference. I'm more concerned with the comment of, you're saying that if we said it goes to the nursing schools to help them pay the hospitals for this, that causes problems according to David?
I can read you his email. That's really all I know about this. I started to just add the nursing school programs, and you know, since I have not worked on this language, I don't know what the issues are, and so I copied you all and Jen and Damien, and Jen had a series of questions, and then Damien had a series of points,
And it all had to do with the fact that we were suggesting that the nursing schools get this money to pay.
that was specifically the issue I asked them to comment on.
So my suggestion is we leave it and we work on it at the conference. I just, obviously, I agree with Keisha. I mean, this should be part of the education program, where it should be part of the hospital services. You know, to put a subsidy out to do this is fine if no one's going to do it. It seems pretty pathetic to me, but if we have to subsidize it, we subsidize it. We absolutely need to make sure it goes to it for the purpose it's designed. So we'll keep that in mind in conference. I think that's clearly. Sarah.
I have strong feelings that if we are going to keep this section in, that we ensure that they will continue to pay those, that it is going to institutions that commit after a year or 2 years to continuing this payment. I think that's the only way I can see giving a subsidy to the institutions that aren't currently doing it.
Continuing will be, if they're not paying for it now, and we give them a subsidy to, let's say, enough to pay for a year of doing it.
Mhm.
You want to say they have to do it forever?
Yeah.
Or
Yes,
a period of time, or?
they'd have to have a plan in place to continue the differential.
maybe we should ask for that.
Yeah, that should be a condition of receipts.
I have no problem. I have no problem.
I think that would
I
be
don't know, I
good.
mean, it's a continuing obligation. I think it would be-
No, but
No,
at this
but we're
point,
giving
like
a subsidy.
a plan to,
We're asking for plans for how to go forward after this
As
is
I say,
done.
I'm reluctant to do that. We want to get this done. And if we now create a negotiation in which people have to look to their budgets 3 years from now in order to decide whether they're going to do it or not, I'm not sure that there's going to be the receptivity to take the money in the first place.
Well, all we're asking them to do is come up with a way after this money's done, to have a plan in place for how to
Well,
pay.
have a plan in place means you're going to do it.
Yes.
And that means you're going to commit to do it. I don't know that people will want to commit to
Then
doing
what
it.
was the point of us
The
giving
point
state
is
money
to get
away?
the subsidy right now, to get it done right now, because it's not being done.
So then we do it for 1 year and that is supposed to help the
And then-
nursing workforce with it?
Well, then at that point, you have time to discuss, negotiate, whatever the case, or decide
That's what
whether or
I'm
not you're
talking
going to continue to subsidize. But to say that you're going to require them to do it, I think it will potentially defeat the purpose of what we're trying to do in the
To
short term.
ask for a plan doesn't mean it commits them to pay for it. It may be a combination, but we want to make
That's
sure this.
that's certainly the implication, and we'd love to make it, but I just don't see that. I
so
see that being
how about this is, how about this is,
advantage of what we're trying to do.
how about this as an alternative? What if we say that of this money, priority should be given to those institutions that
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
that
Yes.
match,
I'm
that
fine with
provide
that.
matching or long-term plans for continuation.
But then,
Yes.
given the amount of money you have, you still have the same thing that you have in the other paragraph of first choice, second choice, third choice. And that the institution that doesn't plan or promise to do it is at the bottom of the line, but they still get the money if the money is there. That's what we say. That's fine with that.
That's fine,
Okay,
yeah,
great.
that's, I mean,
Okay.
the point is, I always feel like if we're gonna give grants, subsidies, stuff like that, we want some public return for that, in addition to just making the problem go away. So in housing, we say, we'll give you all the subsidies, but you gotta rent to low-income people for 5 years in exchange.
Yeah.
So,
We're trying to get a long-term benefit.
No, I
so let's see, if,
You just recognize that some people will not take that benefit.
let's see if David,
I do not know what you meant to say here.
okay, so
Subsection A, as I understand it, because again, I've not worked on this language at all.
Right.
But subsection A gives money directly to preceptors. I mean, it goes through the hospital, but it's part of their compensation, up to $5 an hour, unless there's too much demand, in which case they will have to lower it, I guess. That's what I read too. And then B tells the director of healthcare reform, along with all these other people, to come up with strategies on how to increase, the number of preceptors and the placements, sustainable funding models for how this is going to work, action plan for all of this. So you've got the subsidy piece, and then you've got the study and proposal piece. And so
And I think
between
that,
those two things, I'm not sure what else you're asking for.
I actually think that B takes care of our concern. We don't have a date that they have to come back to us with that.
I mean, frankly, I don't think it takes care of it because I don't think this institution has any power to tell the hospitals what to do. And we are giving the money to the hospitals and not the education institutions who have heretofore thrown their hands up and said, we just don't have enough preceptors. So we've just done what we can. How are they, we are still giving money away to hospitals completely separate from that. And we know that hospitals are differentiating unevenly. So I think priority should go to those that commit to a long-term differential. I don't think AHAC has any power with a study to direct where these dollars go and who gets priority.
Okay. The one additional thing, as we look at how we keep, is on line 7, I would suggest that we also, instead of the agency shall distribute funds to hospitals employing nurses, they all employ nurses. This money, it goes to hospitals to employ nurses who provide, to employ the nurses who provide this very specifically, not just employing nurses. I mean, I think we should need to make it very clear, it's only going to nurses who agree to do this additional supervision. And if there's a way to make that clear. And I don't know what, I think B is, I think we should just then put more teeth in B.
I just think we should be clear about who we're directing the money to. And that, to me, has nothing to do with the study. So we're giving
what-
$1.4 million away, and that's going to be separate from a study. And I think the $1.4 million should have priority.
May I make a suggestion? We, in conference, we will make it absolutely clear that this money should only go to the extent it raises the hourly rate of preceptors. David, do you think if we just had one sentence at the end of A1 that said, priority for funding under this section shall be to those hospitals that agree to long-term or matching funds, something like that? Just one sentence,
Yeah.
just right at the end.
I think I can write that, no problem. I don't think that this money is going to the hospitals. It's going to pay the preceptors. So I don't see, the hospital's only function, as I understand it, is just to give them the
Is to
money.
give the
Right, right.
Okay.
And I think that's why, I think that's why we can make that absolutely clear. I don't think anybody would dare say the hospital should get this money, put it towards their bottom line. I think that's taken care of. But to the extent we want some return, in addition to this free money that we're giving to hospitals to give over to the nurses to do the preceptor services, we may want to just say, our priority would be that those hospitals who step up and say, you know, I'm willing to match that, or I'm willing to continue this for the next 5 years. It's just a general language. We can clean it up at the end.
And I would use the language future funding, that hospitals, you know, that for future funding, that they would, we would want that.
All right, I'll try that. I'll try that.
Just one sentence. Right after that. Okay, let's keep going.
What page are you on right now?
We're on page, well, we went back, but
We're on page 26.
No,
We're on back at 55.
Yeah, no, we were on set, we
We're
were
on
on
back at 55 with a question.
Okay.
And that is regarding loans. We have loans being made for any post-secondary institution as defined in the statute. But then it says loans must be serviced. And this is something I guess that healthcare added. It's in bold and yellow, by an accredited U.S. educational lender for attendance at an eligible school. Well, the eligible school definition in statute includes foreign institutions. And so my question is, why do we tie that loan to an accredited U.S. educational lender? Because that potentially precludes certain of the schools that are approved schools under the statute.
Yeah, I'm in the same ballpark with David, you know, now, this is health and welfare line.
We didn't
Again, but again, an approved post-secondary educational institution includes a non-U.S. institution approved by the U.S. Secretary of Education that's eligible for the use of education loans made under Title V of the Higher Education Act, or a non-U.S. institution designated by the corporation as eligible for use of its grant awards.
So what change would you like to see? Because,
Well, again, I don't know why we have to.
You'd have to ask somebody in health and welfare why they added this.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a question that it just seems to be inconsistent with the definition. And
It
we
is
certainly do
inconsistent with
want to have
eligible.
graduates of foreign schools who meet our standards, that could be licensed, that could do the work. So I just don't want to shut the door.
But we don't have the answer to that.
well, can we just do something to leave the door open at this point? What would it take to do that?
Well, what it would take to do that is perhaps, at least as a start, delete the words by an accredited US. And so it simply means loans means education loans guaranteed, made, financed, serviced, or otherwise administered by an educational lender for attendance at an eligible school. And then you work this.
You just want to take
I'm
out
on page
US.
55.
Don't you just want to take out US and leave accredited?
Yeah, an accredited educational lender, that's fine.
But-
Whatever that means, I don't know what it accredited.
These are the VSACs of the world, I guess. So, all right, take out the word US. Okay. We'll talk about it.
And then we can discuss it.
And you just have a note that, you know, what our intent is, and just to make sure that whatever language we put in conference covers these foreign schools. Good.
So
Okay, we're,
I know I'm very antsy here, but you guys are doing great. We're making progress.
That-
We're almost halfway through.
Well, no, we're much further than that because most of this is health and welfare.
All right.
So I think we're up into the 70s.
I need to, I'm sorry, that, that language appears in two different places in this bill, and I have no idea what the import of it is. So are you saying you want to strike the term US?
Yes,
Yes.
I think that's what I heard Randy say.
Always add it back in, it becomes exceedingly meaningful, you know, when we get to conference and also when we have a discussion with health and welfare, but to get this out today, I don't want to tie our hands.
Fair enough. So that will be in the definition of loans where it appears,
Page 55 is one place, and maybe another.
yeah, 55. That billing will be on page 64. I think that might be it with the blue. Scrolling fast, but yeah, that's it for blue. That'd be it.
So where do we go next?
Oh, you had a question about section 46 on page 92. I asked staff basically, obviously this needs to happen somewhere. Some language to this effect has popped up in about 3 or 4 different bills by now. And where does it need to happen? Should it happen in 703? I don't have an answer for you.
Well, this is the issue here, why I think we should strike this section, is we're combined, this is a concurrence with further amendment on S11. So when we get into economic development stuff, we use all of this leftover
Right.
money.
Yeah,
So
I don't
not to say $8 million shall revert, I would just, if that's the whole purpose of that section, I would just strike section 46.
I tend to agree with you, and I will note that S11, as it has passed the House and was sent to you, reverts the entire $25.5 million in that bill. So I suspect that full reversion language will appear in whatever the final thing is that you all pass. So I will strike 46 from this bill.
There's a minor typo on page 69. There's an extra carriage return on line 6.
So where are you, Randy?
Page 69, line 6. This is the carriage.
Yeah, well, thank you. We will need to clean this up before you take it to the clerk's office for sure.
So,
Can you, unless there are other questions, can you do your,
And on line 14 also same typo.
can you just get us back I need a clean draft to take to the clerk's office, but can you get us back a draft with a few changes that we made today? Just assume that everything else is good to go at this point.
Same kind of carriage return typo, page 72, line 20.
Stuff the editors pick up too. Line 20 and 72.
So you want me to go just make
Page
these
75.
couple of changes that you talked about this morning, and I'll come back.
Thank you.
thank you, David.
Hopefully it'll be edited before we take it before.
Okay. So let's move to, even if we need David for this as well, but let's move to 210. It's been sitting on the calendar for a few days. I just keep running out of time and committing to take a vote on whether we want to concur with those amendments. We talked about the amendments at length. They're not great to deal most of the way to use. Let's see if we can find a path for 210.
So far down the pile.
Casey, you're all over my digger page here. Good ads. Ooh,
Thank you.
banners, squares. Can't miss it.
Wow,
That's the goal, right?
yeah, it's a.
And then, oh no, I thought you were in an article too.
Oh,
Super
Let me
fun.
see. So it's on the digger page as opposed to how I get it on an email.
Casey.
Oh my gosh, lots of patience. Look at it surrounding poor Beth.
how did you have a baby?
I have a baby.
I mean, not you, but did you? Do you have a new daughter?
No, not that I know of. If I did, my wife didn't tell me yet. It's kind of awkward. The activists. so far.
Oh my gosh, I have a friend named Scott Moore in Kentucky.
Yeah.
And they just had a baby and I'm like, why are you sitting here? Okay, that makes a lot more sense. I was like, what's happening?
Scott, you know, do we have a latest version of 210 with our changes?
This is what David gave me yesterday.
No.
I know.
Let's mess this around. I'm gonna walk us through this.
This is what he gave me just last night.
Or this is what day is this?
This is the second.
Which was Monday, Tuesday?
Tuesday. I mean, Monday was the second, Tuesday was the third, today's the fourth.
Yeah, so we talked about this in our 3-hour
Yes,
meeting. So we're not gonna go with, I had suggested going to 120 days, but trying to.
I don't think that's gonna get us.
In trying to appease a little bit the governor, I don't think that's necessarily gonna help, and apparently it's gonna piss off. Oh, sorry, it's gonna anger the House, so just leave that section out. Subchapter 3. Changes. Where's all of this? So you have to insert. Just have to look for the color coded stuff. Okay, so what this does here is all the same except for on page 4 and 6. This was the attempt to clarify that accessory dwelling units did not have to rent with people who are either homeless or with a voucher, but they did have to rent at the fair market rental. And I did clarify this morning that that would be for a period of, I think, 5 years. They would have to rent at fair market rents that the U.S. government determines for regions of the state. I think I was trying to, I want to make this an attractive offer for people to develop into ADUs. And if they can't charge a reasonable rent or are being told specifically who they have to rent to, that's a real chilling effect, I think.
It is.
So this is a compromise, and as I said, I do want to get something in return for the $50,000 you get, in addition to just getting a new unit. So.
So we're striking B.
No,
Where are you?
okay, so all of the language from page 1 was all, he just had to repeat the language. It's all the same as it was in our bill. And then he separates out in this section, he distinguishes the main BHIT program, which is for dilapidated property. And there's never been any controversy of what the payback is or whatever. You have to rent to someone homeless for 5 years or rent for 10 years to somebody who is limited means, and that's overseen by the nonprofits and stuff. So he's given them their own set of rules, and he's given the rule for the ADUs at the top of page 6. Section. Should read that.
Is required to accept any housing vouchers that are available to pay all or a portion of tenants' bills.
I think that still applies if it's available, but this is the fallback. Well, actually, I'm not sure it applies. I think this is the only requirement to accessory units is on page 6.
Page 4.
We can ask David when he comes back.
Page 4, line 17, a landlord shall accept any housing vouchers that are available to pay all or a portion of the tenant's rent and utilities.
I think that's a good question, whether that still applies to accessory dwelling units, and whether it's a good policy or bad policy. I don't know. I'm trying to get rid of the children effect on it.
Yeah.
And then the house had,
So,
the state made some comments that in some ways they thought we were giving too much of the $20 million to ADUs. I don't know if they're saying too much, but they wanted the discretion. And I just felt like I wanted to at least make it a priority because they hadn't done any ADUs development so far. So if you recall the bill that we passed, we did 25% of the $20 million or $5 million. And I lowered that to 20%, so it would be $4 million. And I also lowered we felt strongly that we wanted these help for people to navigate.
right,
the system.
the
We had
navigation.
given $1 million for that, but now that we're going down to 4, from 5 to 4, I lowered that from 1 to 800,000 or 20%.
Where is that?
It's
Page 7.
I'm still back at the beginning on page 2, where they expanded the accessory dwelling unit opportunity, and I had thought we had cut that. The units really created on a lot with an existing structure.
we had cut that. Is it still in here?
Yeah,
Oh, okay. This is probably printed before we had that discussion. Yes. So I think what he's.
we have a new version of this.
I thought we did.
This is 1.1.
Can you look to the, David sent us an email and an
Because
attachment.
part of what I'm having.
Yes, you're right. We did cut that. I think all it is just cutting that second part of that section. We do? You're sending it to us now? I'm printing it out too? Maybe.
I mean, Tony printed.
So are people, based on what we've discussed, are people at least comfortable with that? We'll definitely wait for David to come, but we'll ask that question about the vouchers. But I think it captures what we.
Just a question, I'm sure it's covered elsewhere in the bill, other than this document. These funds are available, one of the categories are properties that are not code compliant. Is there somewhere in there that says that anything at the end of this, they have to be code compliant?
The money is used to bring them into code compliance.
Oh, it's not used.
I'm pretty sure there is.
I just don't recall where it is, and I can't tell.
You're right, it's assumed.
Well, all of these, there are a couple places here where the money can be used both for ADUs and otherwise that are not code compliant. But it seems to me there ought to be something somewhere that says that they have to be at the end. Money is something that's code compliant.
Well, and also the nonprofits wouldn't participate in anything
Right.
of renting something that was non-code compliant.
I would assume so, but
Well, it could be in the bill elsewhere.
it may be. I think we need to ask that, because it's pretty important.
I think that's the whole purpose.
But it's the whole purpose.
Yeah, compliance. So if we get, this is just one copy waiting for others, so. Please make copies for. Senator Clarkson. You're going to stick your head into the clerk office and explain to them where we are.
I guess, I don't quite know where we are, but it would be nice to have her here before we go on the floor, so she can vote or not vote.
I'm not concerned whether it's board or not. If she wants to come and vote, you tell that, well, I'm more concerned to let them know that we're at the witching hour and we need to get these two votes done. So,
She's up in this conference about,
well, it's not essential.
Is what first that really be on the floor for.
Randy, was I supposed to actually get you anything for third reading?
I'm sorry?
For truth and reconciliation, were there any things that you were actually anticipating for third reading, or am I answering
No.
your question? Okay, I just want to make sure I'll be there, but right, thank you.
Nothing will take my mind.
Right, exactly, yeah, I was like, I don't know if I've said. Stuff covered vetting as well.
So that Senator Clarkson was talking about, was taken out. And other than that, we put in the thing that should be offered as a short-term rental. And then we did the 20% on page 7. So that's it. So the only outstanding question here, I think, is, what is it? The
Go to last.
code compliant, but the other one, I think is, I'm not sure that they would have, is the voucher requirement applicable here. I don't mind. I think it's probably in some ways discriminatory under state law that if you pay with a voucher that you do it. I'm concerned, I think the way that it works for the non-code compliant buildings that are not accessory buildings is you have to rent to somebody with vouchers. That's what I don't want to be here. But if somebody fits the other requirement, can pay that amount of rent and has a voucher, then I think they should be, the landlord should be required to get the voucher.
So the 120 days piece is out?
120 day lease.
Okay. So it's, now it's just you can't rent a short-term rental that's defined as
Well,
less
in
than
fact,
30
90
days.
days was something else. We
Oh, okay.
had 90 days in ours, they had 90 days. It's exempt from the registry if you're like.
Right, okay,
Short-term rental is for the accessory dwelling.
right, okay.
Yeah, project shall comply with applicable building, housing, and health codes.
Okay.
So that's, I think that takes care of the code compliant issue.
I don't know if anybody is watching us, but if they can, and has the answer to this question, if they could call Scott and email Scott and we can let them into the Zoom. Because I'm sure that Sean Gilpin or Josh Hanford or Chris Cochran may know the answer to the question of whether the accessory dwelling units have to be offered to somebody with a voucher first. That was not the answer.
I don't think so. The limited part that I'm reading here is if they have a voucher, you have to take it, but Jonathan has to be offered.
If you're comfortable with it, I'm willing to just go with it as is at this point.
I mean, we can ask some,
So, well, I'm not sure this is going to happen. But I think that our position is pretty clear, and I don't think the House would give us a hard time.
Do you want me to
clarifying.
text Chris Cochran? I feel like it's so strange to, we're just like putting out to the.
Yes, I'm not sure he's
Fee-wise,
gonna have the answer.
Okay,
Sean Gilpin would, or Josh had.
I can see if I have one in there.
He might not even have seen this yet.
Yeah. It's got of the appointments that we issued. Would you give me the list that I have again? I know you sent it to me one time, I got most of the detail, but I know one guy in terms of what he's been appointed to, I don't have my notes in that much detail.
David sent us
Yes.
the latest version of the changes in pink.
Chris Cochran's not available.
Sent it to the whole committee.
Okay.
I had not realized that this is David Bessman, because
Yes,
this
it's
is on
just-
the floor now, and the question is, which I did not appreciate it, but evidently I'm the only one who didn't understand it. I thought we were doing this afternoon, because, needless to say. So, we're evidently doing this right now.
We're doing what right now?
We're S11. Evidently, that's on the floor right now.
What's S11?
S11 was the robocall bill that now has turned into an economic development
Well,
bill.
we have it in front of us now.
Yeah,
So
it
we
is
have to
not.
vote.
Okay, this is 210, but now it's 11. That's 11.
We're moving to S11 right now. In your email, David sent us the changes from this one. They're not extensive, they're in pink.
From H703, that's now S11. Okay, I missed.
It's easy to miss, it's happening fast.
Can I follow my horse because I can't look at color?
She was taking over for.
Can we get to a vote on this?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I just don't see David's email.
The email is not posted.
It's an email, David, we can post it. Do you have the email?
I don't have it.
I don't either.
No.
I have an email from
1
Kate.
minute ago, maybe I have a fast computer.
You must.
I was gonna say, whenever all of a sudden you say, oh, it came in at this time, it's always like 8 minutes after I got it.
Well, fine, so you and I have the same computer. I don't know how that's possible.
Like, does it reroute for some other email?
All I know is I don't have anything. Yep, I don't see it. I see the last, I feel like this is a real problem. Because the last email is from 9:34.
Let me see if the email I get to you.
Right on that.
Oh, good, Randy, that makes me feel much better.
I have one at 8:37 a.m., but that's not it, it's earlier.
I'll try and forward mine.
I just forwarded mine to Allison.
Oh, you got it too?
Yeah.
I'll forward
I
mine to Ray.
I don't.
What's the
clearly.
timestamp on it?
I have,
I don't have that.
9:55.
Yeah, I got one at 8:37, but that's it.
I'm really having a trouble moving up here, clearly. See it,
I don't have it either.
I'm sending it to you.
thank you, but doesn't mean it'll get to us any faster, because clearly we're not getting stuff fast.
And I don't think it'll take us 5 minutes to print it out, so we should just work off the computer.
Am I connected? It's looking like I'm not even connected. Yeah, I'm connected, but Keisha is looking at my emails. I have exactly the same.
Did you were just refreshed?
I don't have to refresh.
Maybe not. I'll see.
It's weird, isn't
You
it?
only have it on your phone, Keisha, because I can
It's
show
not on my phone either. I just looked. Same thing. I'm stuck at 9:34.
I do have it on my phone, but I can't look at the colors on my phone. The colors. And I can see
Okay,
it.
you know what I'm doing? Going to Outlook. No, not going to Outlook. Sorry.
I don't know. Wait, when we back yet?
Hold on, I'm restarting. It's like, I'm not getting anything.
Your whole computer?
I'm gonna check.
Yes.
And we're gonna put off the veto override, so we're all on.
Okay, and
Third reading.
exactly, the resolution. Okay, absolutely.
It doesn't look, let me just look back here. Hold on, let me just,
Okay.
no,
Can I just refresh? Because, yeah,
yeah, I don't know. So nothing new is coming in, it looks like. I checked, the power is fine. Randy's not getting stuff either, so I'm not too fussed.
I think you're gonna get it very soon.
But I'm not getting your email either, so it's not like, so
Right, I
maybe,
think it's yours, it's just slower.
but Randy's not getting anything either, right, Randy?
Look now. Okay, anything new?
I'm gonna close out of that, I'm gonna go to this.
And receive again. I just got something from Scott. 10:01 a.m. you just sent.
If it has an attachment with 90 pages, it just might be slower to go through because of the size of the file.
That's possible, because I don't have anything from David though.
While we're waiting, can we take a hand vote on the,
On the latest,
On
or is that
210?
something?
this is to concur with further amendment to the House.
Okay,
And
and
just-
can you do that?
What?
Can you do this on the floor?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Well, 210 was my bill, so I'm just.
Oh, yeah, I'm happy to do it.
That's-
So it
That's all.
essentially gets rid of the chilling effect on ADUs,
Yeah,
lowers the amount of money for ADUs and administration, gets rid of what the House tried to do, what they said you could build many units on a single family lot. I never took any precedent on that. Those are the three changes.
And so you're planning to vote to concur with what the House did.
Yeah, you should vote for this and then vote against the bill. This guy makes it better. Anyhow, can I get a show? This is just to concur with further proposal of amendment. Gets our ADUs back.
So you're gonna do, in effect, a further proposal amendment. Are you ready to present that now, or?
That's not that big of a deal. So, I mean, it's all, for me, it's all about the ADU section.
no,
So,
no, that's fine. You can look at it. No secrets.
so all in favor of concurring with further amendment as in draft 2.1 of H210? All opposed?
Opposed?
Okay,
It's
all right.
10:01,
Right.
but I can't get.
David, we're really technological, but
But I finally got it at 10:08.
8 minutes later, that's what I said.
So
okay, can we all look at
We're
it?
8 minutes away.
David,
Scott, you-
have a seat.
Yeah,
I've
yeah.
gone through the changes. They look great. They could be very explained very simply, the ones in pink.
I got it at 10:04.
9 minutes.
Scott, can you send that to Tony to have it printed in color? If we can.
Would help me.
6 copies. What?
Or we could just look at it here.
It worked.
I guess not.
That's still what pages to look at.
It turns out, David, it's on the floor now, so I'm gonna have to go with the section by section.
Well, we're not gonna be able to go on the floor now, because David still has to add this to S11. This is
Right,
703 pass, and he has to add one.
okay,
Abby Shepherd has sent on the
Right.
salt stuff as well.
okay.
Did she send the?
This bill keeps growing, David,
It's on this one.
like my waistline.
So somebody added it
Uh,
in terms of our proposal amendment?
for the proposal amendment has to have the roll call too. Yeah.
Yeah, that's gonna be added back in because it was taken out.
We're
So
adding
it's-
3 pieces.
Three pieces. Yeah,
We're adding
but
our,
it's all cut and paste.
it may be,
What page we on?
so we're on,
Page 14.
That's the first name, let's see.
The date.
yeah. So we're leaving January 15th, 23 for the first initial report. And then we're doing,
December 1, 2023.
yeah,
Could we just have David very quickly explain the stuff in pink and hold questions till we end?
Yeah, David Hall, Legislative Council, Scott, I'll just ask you to scroll pink to pink. I don't actually know what pages they all occur on, to be honest with you, but the date change is for the final report on the Workforce Innovation Office and the Governor's Office, so that's that change. Next page, catch your eye. Anybody?
Three.
All right, I like it. Good speed, good speed. There you go. Other high demand sector to be discussed. All right.
Yep.
This is the EMS outreach. Page 41, there you go. So this is expanding who can participate here. Does everybody have a chance to see that?
Yeah, I think so. I think it does a trick.
Okay, you did. So we're gonna, in this healthcare, I think all we're doing is strike, well, we got this, this is preceptor. But hold it there for a moment, Scott, please.
What page is that? Can we go back? Page 46.
I'm happy with that language.
46. Hospitals that provide national compensation.
Oops.
And we're gonna keep going. Scott, if you're ready, we'll, I think the next couple are striking, US from definition of loans in a couple of places.
Yeah, page 56.
And, yeah, and then the last thing I think is striking out section 46 completely. Those are the ones I remember.
So just to go over this again before we vote, this is a concurrence with an amendment to S11 to preserve, we will preserve S11 the road call, it will add this, our version of 703 now. It will add H-159 as we passed unanimously out of the Senate. And it will add salt. And that will be a concurrent further amendment, which was sent to approval. Oh, I said that, was the first thing I said.
Yeah.
We're not gonna receive from them. Okay, so, it's unusual, but I will make a motion to do precisely that. Any further discussion? Let's take a roll call on this.
Okay, Scott, are you ready for a roll call? This is on the amendment to ISO limit.
Yeah, and if we can get Becca's vote at some point, we'll do that.
Okay.
They're pushing us really hard here.
Yeah.
David, thank you. Can you, John Bloomer would want this as soon as you can cut and paste the other pieces onto it.
Yeah, I don't know how long this is gonna take, but I don't think I can give it to him. I think I have to give it to you to give it to him.
What? No, I'll give it to him, but I get it from you.
Yeah, oh, yeah, absolutely. So, so you'll be the reporter.
Yeah, well, Allison will be the primary.
Okay.
I'll- Yeah.
I'll send it to both.
Okay.
Okay, well, Scott needs to know the reporter. So
Allison Clark does a little bit.
okay, so Senator Ballant, holding the vote open. Senator Brock.
Yes.
Senator Clarkson.
Yes.
Myself, Senator Rockenstill, yes. Senator Soraka.
Yes. Thank you all very much on both of these. We don't have any idea whether we're coming back for a second session.
We're coming back for a video session.
Today, I heard some talk about coming back.
Oh,
Yeah.
I thought you just.
Yeah, I
I thought it said for. You have to report this on.
Right now.
Okay, at least, take this up to them.
I think people will
Yeah.
understand.
Okay, I just want to pull it off,
I wish I
sending
could
it to
do
the notice calendar, I don't want to send it to the house. Okay.
We are all here to back you up.
Well,
Well, maybe.
yeah, there's no point in not suspending the rules. This
Okay.
just won't matter.
Thank you, everybody, I'm not happy with this process. Will we offline? We go offline.
Well,